Welcome to Digging Deeper into Spiritual Practices, a Spiritual Seedlings interview with Nancy Flinchbaugh. I am the author of several books, including Awakening, a contemplative primer on learning to sit. I want my readers to have opportunities to learn more about the spiritual practices discussed in my book. So I'm interviewing some contemplative experts. You can find out more about my books on my website at spiritualseedlings.com. Today I'll be interviewing Farzana Moon about her contemplative practice as a Sufi Muslim. Farzana is an author of 15 books, a poet, a historian, a playwright, and a practicing Sufi. Well, welcome to Spiritual Seedlings interview. I'm Nancy Flinchbaugh, and today I'm interviewing Farzana Moon, who is an author, a poet, a playwright, and a historian, and a Muslim contemplative. So today we're going to find out a little bit about Farzana's background and how she became a writer and a contemplative. So I'd like to just thank you, Farzana, for taking time to talk with me this afternoon. And I wanted to begin by just asking you to tell me a little bit about your personal background, where you've lived, and what your spiritual tradition has been throughout your life.
Well, I was born in a small town in Pakistan, and as growing up as a child, we stayed in several towns because my dad was in the army, and wherever he was posted, we just went there. But most of my time was teenage years and college years were spent in Lahore, Pakistan. And that's where I graduated from Punjab University, completing my master's in education. Then later on, after I did my master's, I taught in a school in Islamabad. That's the capital of Pakistan. And that's where most of the kids from ambassadors come to that school. And but I taught for a few years, few months, because then I got married. As for my parents, both my parents were Muslims, and they prayed 5 times a day, and they fasted in Ramadan. But for some strange reason, they didn't impose any of those rituals on me or my brother. And with the exception that they made us study Quran in Arabic. A tutor came to our house, and we finished reading Quran in Arabic, and I learned it by rote, and I didn't know any meaning because I didn't understand Arabic. So I was really not interested in religion. And basically, as I said that before, several times I said that I led a life of a heathen, if I may say so. But I did read. I was very much interested in all religions. So I read all the scriptures, all the holy scriptures in English from all religions. And when I came to, after I got married and I was coming to America, my dad gave me a copy of the Quran in English. But I didn't read it for a long time until we settled in Ohio. That too, but when I got to it, I realized that when I got reading, and I realized how distorted the Islam was, the teachings of Islam, or how it was interpreted, the way it was in even by Muslims in this country. And also noticed that how the clerics, by their zeal had made man-made laws to oppress women just to suit their own bigotry or hypocrisy. And when I, the reason I didn't get to it, I wanted to write about it, but the reason I didn't get to it because I was more interested in Mughal history, the Mughal emperors, because I studied back home the Mughal history, the British history. And that was the Mughal emperors ruled for more than 200 years before the British conquered India. And so I just wanted to write from first to the sixth Mughal emperor. And I remember going to Antioch College at a writers' conference, and there was one lady, Susan Carpenter, and I didn't have any money to pay for the conference because it was very expensive. So I was just excited and talking to her that I'm going to write 6 Mughal emperors, about the lives of the 6 Mughal emperors. And she said, why don't you join? And I said, I don't have any money. And she said, well, we'll make it possible for you. So she said, I can volunteer and make coffee and get cookies from donations from other stores and attend it. So I did attend for 2 or 3 years. And that's when I remember that she was an inspiration to me. And I did write feverishly for years and years and years. So paradoxically, when I was writing it, the theology came into my writings. No matter what I wrote, the theology was on the back of my mind probably. And when I was writing, I wrote that from first to the 6th Mughal emperor, and then later there was another one, 150 years apart, also the 7th one, that when they were loving and kind and generous, their empire flourished. But when they become slowly and slowly bigoted and became cruel and unkind, their empire just disintegrated. So that's that gave me the uh, uh, that gave me the opportunity to practice my theology writings also, because I was reading a lot of those things.
That's really instructive, isn't it? That when the leaders become bigoted and hateful, it's that leading to the downfall. It's a good lesson for our times. It's interesting. We share a couple of things. One is that I have a master's degree in education also.
Oh, great.
And I also was a volunteer at Antioch Writers Workshop.
Oh, good.
When I first started writing.
Yeah, I didn't see you. Maybe you were at a different time.
Yeah, you were probably there before me. I think you started writing.
Yeah.
You've been writing a long time. Well, what drew you to the Sufi tradition within Islam?
Actually, in our country, when we go to college and university, the study is so intensive and it's like becomes tedious. So in order to get away from my academic side, I started just collecting all sorts of books on English literature, on philosophy, on theology, and then on the wisdom of the Sufis and their poetry. And that appealed to me so much that they became my mentors, my silent mentors. And I discovered that they were the heart and soul of Islam. Like without their teaching of spirituality or interpreting what the Quran or the Hadith is the teaching, the the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad recorded in certain books, and it's called hadith. So they interpreted those, and that's when I discovered that they are the ones who are the heart and soul of Islam, because without their spirituality, Islam is just a skeleton, brittle and dogmatic.
Well, I've really appreciated that about your writing, and I've learned about the great Sufi leader, which I think you're going to talk about here. But also, like, the words are just so amazing, you know. I just kept reading them over and over because they're so life-giving. So how would you describe the Sufi tradition for those who are not familiar with that?
Yeah, I actually gave a talk at Columbia University one time about the Sufis, and that's when I told them, I said, there's only one simple word for it. Sufi is just one word called love. As the Sufis say, cultivate so much love in your heart that there's no room left in there for anything else. But even after practicing it for a long time, I still don't feel comfortable explaining what Sufism is on my own. So I just resort to the teachings of the great Sufi master, musician, and uh, writer who came to America actually and went to Europe and also. So I would rather read his excerpt, which describes the Sufism perfectly. He wrote a lot of books, but I just took one excerpt from his writing to describe to the Western audience what Sufi tradition is. And he says, uh, sorry. A Sufi tries to keep harmony in his surroundings. The harmony, which his name is Hazrat Inayat Khan. Sorry, didn't even read his name. His name is Hazrat Inayat Khan, and he was a great musician also. A Sufi tries to keep harmony in his surroundings, the harmony which demands many sacrifices. It makes one endure what one is not willing to endure. It makes one overlook what one is not inclined to overlook. It makes one tolerate what one is not accustomed to tolerate. It makes one forgive and forget what one would have never forgotten if it were not for the sake of harmony. But at whatever cost harmony is attained, it's a good bargain, for harmony is the secret of happiness, and in absence of this, a person living in palaces and rolling in gold can be most unhappy. So that's his teaching, and I did a lot of. I became his fan actually, and studied him, and then studied his life in America and Europe, and wrote about his wife, who was an American girl he fell in love with.
Yes, I read her book, the book that you wrote about her too.
Yeah, that's called The American Queen, and it's I call it American Queen because he told her that God is the love of my soul, king of my soul, and you are the queen of my heart.
No. Did you ever actually meet him? Or?
No, he was like 20th century. It was during World War I and World War II. And he came to America, then got married. He and Aurora Baker, his wife, they got married in London. Then they settled in Paris, and they went to Russia during World War I, during World War II. They were in London, and their daughter and son actually were in the British Army. And the girl became a spy for the uh, British Army to spy, and she
Yes.
went to France, and that's when she was caught by the Nazis and captured
Very,
and
very
killed.
sad part of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually there's a movie about her. It's called The Spy Princess,
Okay.
and people can watch that.
I guess he was before your time. I should have realized that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on
So
YouTube, I guess.
I'll have to look that up. What is, so I know they've been, Sufis have influenced you, and what is your own contemplative practice and how does it help you in your life?
Okay, well, now I have a Sufi teacher. She lives in Lahore, Pakistan, the same town I came from. And so we connect via Zoom every week. There are several of them. Sufi, we call it Murid. She's the teacher, and we are the disciples. So uh, they are from different parts of the world, even from India and Japan or Turkey. And so we connect every Thursday, and it's called zikr. Zikr is the practice of remembrance of God in Sufi tradition. And that only comes at the end of her discourse on spiritual teaching. And when she decides, or if she permits her at times, then we discuss. She gives us the time to discuss other things. And then twice a year, she gives us person to person, one-to-one person instructions, and to ascertain how we are progressing in our spirituality. Uh, and then she gives us certain kind of Sufi practices, which we do every day. Certain, very few short prayers that we do in the morning. For me, I think the day starts with the breathing exercises that she has given me. Then I meditate for an hour. Then I go for a walk for an hour. And then in the afternoon, late afternoon, I also spend some time in silent contemplation. So I think basically that's it. But all those exercises help me. Uh, they have increased my perception of the things, and I've started to realize how things get easy for me, and how the pieces of the puzzle, even from the past, fit into the present, and how things work. And because these days I've started telling myself, I said, miracles happen every day because I notice things. I notice things that how things get easy with time. So that's basically it. Uh,
I think it's very cool the thread of contemplative practices, kind of transcends religions, and I
I
find
know.
a similar experience, when I meditate and when I take that contemplative time,
Um,
things kind of unfold more easily. Yeah.
yeah, it clears your mind actually. It clears your mind. It gives you more perception into life and understanding, not very much, but understanding of how things work, little at a time.
So, you've talked a little bit about your writing career, that you started writing the histories of the
Mm.
Mughal Empire, and then you moved on to some other things. What goals do you have in your writing, and what have been the themes in your books?
Well, actually, I started, as I told, with the Susan Carpenter when I was so excited that I'm going to write six Mughal emperors. And I don't even know if I was serious at that time, although I was, because I always admired the Mughal emperors. And then I just started writing feverishly. And I just kept writing because there was some need inside me just to keep writing. And I was naive at that time that I didn't even have any goal. I didn't know if I was ever going to publish those books. But as I kept writing, and then in between, I kept getting inspired, and I would just keep writing poetry or just poetry and short stories or even plays. So I wrote so much during that time, and those were just a few years that I just kept writing, and I didn't even think about getting published. And when I started thinking about it, it was difficult. It was very difficult. And it just began with fits and starts. And every time I would publish one book, and I would think that it would get easier for the second, but it didn't. Even when all the Mughal sequels were published, it still was difficult. It seems like it has gotten easier now. Now that I don't try very hard, and maybe it is the spiritual training that I let go. And I think, okay, if it gets published, it's fine. If not, that's fine. I'll just keep trying. And it's like going with the flow. And but then I do have now I have set my goals. I have so much stuff which is not even edited. I have a poetry book, a book of short stories, a book of plays, uh, and actually some of my plays are being considered to be produced. Uh, Several years, I don't know, even 5 years ago, I went to Sweden because one of my play was accepted to be for stage reading. And so that's when I got interested. I said, well, I have so many plays, so I should start sending in. So that's my goal now, to get all those books that I already have, to get them published. So I don't write that much now, just the contemplation, what I feel every day. So I've become more like contemplating more and trying to feel enlightened, whatever it is. I don't know the meaning of it, but just taking it easy, I guess.
Yeah.
But the goal is to get all those books published.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I will leave some information on this at the end of the video for people to check out your website and your books, because they will learn a lot if they read your books like I have. So thank you so
Thank,
much.
thank you so much, Nancy. You're an inspiration. I love your books too. I've read all your books,
Oh, wow.
and good luck with your books too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this interview with Farzana Moon. Farzana is a teacher with a master's degree in education. She's a poet, a historian, and a playwright. She writes Sufi poetry, historical, biographical Mughal sequels, and plays based on the stories from religion and folklore. I encourage you to check out Farzana's many books. Several of her books help us learn more about contemplative traditions. Her books, Sufis and Mystics of the World, explain the traditions of several different contemplatives. Her book, Prophet Muhammad, the first Sufi of Islam, explains how the Prophet participated in the mystic tradition. And then she's also written a book about Hazrat Inayat Khan, a great Sufi, and many wonderful wisdom sayings from his, which are related to the Quran. And she also wrote about his wife, the American Queen. Farzana first became entranced with Mughal history, and she's written 6 books about this time period of Muslim rule in northern India from the 16th century into the 19th century. Farzana is also a critic of some who distort the true meaning of Islam for political reasons. You might want to read No Islam, but Islam and Sharia Exposed for her thoughts on these practices. And here are some of her other books as well. You can find out more about Farzana Moon's work on her author page on Amazon. You can read a review of her most recent book, The American Queen, at that link, and find her blog at farzanamoon.blogspot.com. This has been a Spiritual Seedlings interview with Nancy Flinchbaugh. You can also find out more about spiritual practices on my website and in my book, Awakening, a Contemplative Primer on Learning to Sit. Thank you for listening.